Hey, how's it going? Oh, that out there, that's just the hype monster. Don't worry, it's not able to get through doors. It's not like it's a velociraptor or anything like that. Hype monster, what are we talking about today? Oh, today we're talking about Arkham Horror, the card game. It's a game that I hyped pretty heavily in my mind. And when I do that, I typically get disappointed. I typically go, oh man, this wasn't as good as I thought it was going to be. Did this game add up? Or should I throw myself to the wild out there and just be devoured by the evil, devastating monster that is the hype monster? Let's take a look. So we've had our dramatic intro, we've had our letters come across the screen. Let's get right down to it. What game are we talking about today? Today we're talking about a game that I've been looking forward to for a long time, since the day it was announced. The day it was announced, I literally put all my Call of Cthulhu collection on eBay. It sold instantly that day for exactly what I paid for it. And then I pre-ordered Arkham Horror, the living card game by a certain Fantasy Flight. Now let me tell you something. I know there are a lot of games out there with the Cthulhu universe, the Lovecraftian universe. And to be fair, there's a good reason for that. It's the same reason why there's a Munchkin Oz, a Flux Oz, and plenty of other Oz-based things. It's because it's public domain. Any game in which you don't have to pay for a license to use, then you're definitely going to see a lot of games like that. There is a game there. There are two here behind me on the top shelf alone. Call that one, whatever. 1, 2, 3, 4. At least 5 sitting here on my shelves because I love the theme. I really do. Plus first edition of Mansions of Madness. It's just there. It really is. The Cthulhu theme is there, and we've got to live with it. You know, one way or the other, you can choose to either hate them, love them, or just be indifferent and play the game for its own merits alone, which is, I think, where you should fall on this game, no matter if you like the Cthulhu universe or not. But to be fair, the Lovecraft universe is really great. Not only is the Lovecraft universe really great, the Fantasy Flight treatment of the Arkham Horror files is incredible. They've built a universe in which the characters are all over the place. You can see them in books, you can see them in different games, you can play as one character in Elder Sign that you can play in Mansions of Madness that you can play in this. It's just really cool because you get some history there and some flavor. And you say, oh, I really like this character, not because, yeah, it's the girl holding the stick or it's the dude with the book. No, it's, oh yeah, I like what this person does, and it gives me a backstory from Eldritch Horror. I get some backstory in Elder Sign. I get some backstory in Arkham Horror. All those sort of things are there in this universe building that Fantasy Flight has capitalized on over the past years. So enough about that theme. We know the theme is there. We know the theme is just all over the place. Let's get down to brass tacks and talk about the game itself, Arkham Horror, the card game. In a minute, we're going to look at the table and kind of see how it plays, but I really just kind of want to talk about one thing first, and that's this marketing line that they've been using. It's like an RPG meets a card game or something like that. It's a great line, but does it mean anything? That's the question I think they really needed to answer. They really needed to capitalize on. Does it really feel like an RPG, and does it really feel like a card game? The card game is going to be obvious. And I think if you kind of look at that statement, it's an RPG meets a card game, there's a weak point and a strong part of that statement. The strong part is like, no, trust us, it's an RPG. Trust us. It's not just a card game. Because if you like card games, that's not really going to deter you. But for me, who's kind of warmish and coolish on card games, I'm just kind of lukewarm on them. It's one of those things they kind of had to sell me on because I was like, okay, I love Mansions of Madness 2nd edition. I really like Eldritch Horror. How are they going to sell me on this one? Let's take a look at the table with the game. We'll look at how it plays. We'll look at all that kind of stuff. Then we'll come back here and talk about all of that collectively. I have one major gripe that I'm going to talk about, and it's probably silly, it's probably ignorant, but it has nothing to do with the game itself, actually. But we'll talk about that in a minute. Let's take a look at what the game is right now. So let's take a look at what comes in the box first, and then we'll dive into kind of how it plays out. I'll come to a closer camera angle for that, for how it plays out. So inside of the box, the smaller box than other LCGs. We'll talk about that in a little bit. First of all, you get your Learn to Play guide, excellent thing. Get your rules reference guide. This is great. You can look up anything really fast. This is a pretty thick rules reference guide too. Most important things are keywords, timing, all that kind of stuff that you wouldn't necessarily pick up the first time. Is in the rules reference guide. Also a campaign log. I love this. And it really goes to what we're going to talk about in the final thoughts about the campaign. Is so important that it tells a story and it's not just a random mission. It kind of ties into something else. It's a mission, but it's a campaign all at once. I printed this one off from their website to write on because I didn't feel like writing on the back of this one. And you do not get this with the game, but Fantasy Flight makes these wonderful little bags that you can put your tokens in that you have to draw out of the bag. You know, they draw tokens out. That's kind of the standard for how this game plays. We'll talk about it in a minute. A whole lot of investigator cards. These have the Art Deco black dark circle back on them. You get these investigator character cards, which you could replace with the painted miniatures or your Mansions of Madness figure for Wendy Adams. So there's that. You get these cards. These are the kind of the threat cards, or I can't remember what they call them, the agenda cards, the bad guy cards. You can tell the difference in the art on the back of those. We'll talk about art in a minute. And then over here is my deck for my character for Roll and Bang. So as you play, this is your player card right here. And then you have your 30 card plus, give or take a few cards deck here. Reference for rounds and actions, one for each player, or one side for each of the sides for a single player game, because that's how I'm playing this at solo. Over here, you do not get these containers, but they come from Stonemeyer Games and they're super cheap. If you're looking for good containers, these are the ones to get. So a little review of those. Little tokens and then health tokens and stuff. We'll talk about these in just a second. That's what comes in the game. That's it. There's nothing else that comes in here. Everything is done with these cards, but it's done in such a way where you get an experience that I was not expecting the fullness of this experience that you get in this. So needless to say, I like this game. There's no point in being trying to hide it, be like, well, no, I love this game, in fact. So let's look even closer at kind of how this game plays. So this is the setup for the second mission, the Midnight Masks. Here's the agenda deck and the act deck. If you don't want to look too closely, I understand. It's not really a spoiler, but just so you know, this will be showing the whole time. Over here's my character Roland. This is my character deck. It's 30 cards plus 2 or 3 right now based on some things that have happened in the story. And it tells you that right here on the card. There's certain things you have to put in anyway. There's some backstory on Roland. There's his deck requirements of what he can and can't use. And over here are his abilities, his health, and his trauma, mental and physical and all that kind of stuff. Here's his skills, and we'll go over those a little bit later. This is what sold me, though. The map of this second mission is what sold me on this, because it's basically the city of Arkham laid out. You start down here in your house. When you start, or when you enter a location, it is flipped over to this side. This side shows the shroud number and the amount of clues on a location. The amount of clues on a location is how many clues you can get from there. Your goal is to get these clues to do certain things. Your act or your agenda will tell you to do certain things to beat the mission or to finish the mission. Those might be spending clues to do something. This one, for instance, has a shroud of 2 and 1 clue per investigator. That's what that symbol means. It says force. When the ghoul priest spawns, spawn it here instead as normal. These are just different things that have to do with story-wise stuff. This is where you would start in this mission. The location pip up here in the top tells you where this location is and where you can travel from here. So from here, you can only go to this circled dot. So you can only go to Rivertown from here. That's how that works. So down here it shows you where you can go. So you can only go to the circle. The only one here with the circle is Rivertown. That's how that works. You go to the places that you can go with an action, with the move action. So that's how kind of adjacency works out in a 9-level grid. Depending on where you laid out, this actually might be adjacent to this. You just kind of need to watch that to be careful so you don't get confused by physical adjacency versus game adjacency. So he'll start there. Clues will spawn on that location. Where's my tokens? So health, sanity, all that kind of stuff. Resources, and these threat and clue cards. So threat would go here on the act deck. Clues would go here to spend them, or clues would go in your character card when you pull it. So if you pull a clue from this location by doing the investigate action, you'd put it over here in your card, and then you could spend it for different things. Now, the different actions you can take on a sequence are you can draw a card. So you would start with a 5-card hand. You can draw a card or gain a resource. These resources are things that you use to pay for cards. We'll look at those in just a minute when we look at cards. You can play a card or an event or an asset from your hand. Fast cards do not cost as an action. We'll talk about that in a minute. You can activate an arrow ability on your card. Certain cards will have that. You can move to a connecting location. That's what we were talking about a minute ago. You can investigate your location. And what that does is you would take your intellect number against the shroud number. So this is a -3. You'll reach into this bag. It'll tell you how to load the bag in the scenario in the campaign log of the pluses, minuses, all these different tokens of different things that are good and bad will go inside of this bag. This one's already preloaded. I would pull out a skull. This skull means it is a -X, where X is the highest number of doom on a cultist enemy. Well, there are no cultist enemies, so this is a -0, which means my 3 beats that 2, which means I would get the clue from here onto my character. And that is how you investigate. That's how you get clues. The next action would be fight or engage. Simply when you get an enemy out there, that's how you fight or engage those. You'll do some combat against their numbers with your numbers. Everything involves pulling tokens out of this bag. So instead of rolling dice, you're pulling tokens out of this bag that does not come with the game. How about this? You can attempt to evade an enemy engaged with you, which costs an action to kind of evade the enemy and move away. So it's kind of a cost of an action to evade, which kind of stinks, but it just happens. These kind of actions down here, these little lightning bolt squiggles, these just kind of happen for free. They're free actions, basically. Imagine them like probability control or perplex and hero clicks. Free action or card abilities that don't cost an action to activate, and then all of this stuff is just special actions like parlay or resign or fight or evade. All these are different things. The round sequence kind of goes like this. The Mythos phase, you skip during your first round. You would place a Doom token on this agenda up here. And so when this number hits 6 of Doom tokens, because that's what's up here, you would flip that card over and resolve what happens to it. Bad things typically happen when you resolve the agenda deck. It might end the mission in a different way than you thought you were going to end the mission. It might spawn a monster. It might do all kinds of different things. You would do all that sort of things. Then you draw a card from the Mythos deck. So the Mythos cards would be set up from all these different cards over here with the different symbols on them. For instance, these symbols, it'll tell you which ones to put in the deck for the game, for each mission. For instance, you'll be able to see it. So it'll tell you, kind of like Lord of the Rings, if you played Lord of the Rings, it's like setting up your threat deck. You'll put any card with a symbol like that or whatever. It'll tell you which symbols to put and make up a deck. You'll then draw one of these cards and resolve it immediately, and then go from there with the next phase, which would be the investigator phase. You get 3 actions. So those actions we talked about a minute ago, your resources are important because they're how you spend cards out of your hand. So if you have a hand with this card in it, it would cost you 2 resources to put this into play. This card would allow you to spend, this is that free action, spend a resource to get a +1 to your intellect, your willpower, and a +1 to your fight. The other thing you'll notice about this card are these symbols up here. Let's say you have a really low number. For instance, my agility is a 2 with a roll 1, which is pretty sorry. If I wanted to, I could spend cards with these symbols on them out of my hand. It doesn't cost an action to boost my skill check. So if my agility is a 2, and let's say I'm going up against a 2 that I need to beat, well, this, if I just discard it, because it has the agility symbol there, would bump that up to a 3. So then you see how it works. It just kind of bumps your things up based on the symbol. If you're going up against a fight check, this would bump your fight or your willpower up just like that. So these symbols can be used to discard a card out of your hand for free to bump up your skills. It's a separate way to play cards, so cards have 2 ways to use them. It's kind of handy because you have to make that choice sometimes. Ooh, do I want to spend the card for the skill, or do I want it for the ability on the card? And that's what makes it tough to keep that in mind as you're playing. You can move to different locations, uncover things, but that is the way the game plays. You'll do different resource checks, different skill checks, different things to kind of find out what the mission tells you, and there's all kinds of stuff in the campaign book that tell you how to do that as well. But that is the game. That is how it plays. You make your deck up. It'll tell you how to make your deck up and all that kind of stuff in the back of your card, but that's it. That's really all there is to it. It does something that Lord of the Rings wanted to do, and it gives you a real purpose. Like, you actually feel like you're playing as your character. There's weakness cards in here. For instance, Roland's weakness card is right here. Let's see if I can find it real quick. Cover up. So, he does everything by the book. His whole thing is he's a cop who does everything right. All the T's crossed, all the I's dotted. Well, this weakness says cover up. Put cover up into play in your threat area with 3 clues on it. When you would discover 1 or more clues at your location, discard that many clues from your cover-up instead. When the game ends, if there are any clues on the cover-up, you suffer 1 mental trauma. Mental trauma is an interesting thing in campaign play. So you see how Roland starts with 5 on his horror check or whatever? Well, I've suffered 2 already, 2 mental trauma in the game. So that means in the campaign. So every single game, I start with 2 mental damage already. It's really bad. But that's what that does. So if you roll that cover up, if you pull that cover up card, it instantly goes into play because it's basically Roland is involved in something that he's embarrassed by, or he's horrified that he would be involved in a cover up, or he has to fix this cover up to show that he is, on the up and up. So everything is thematic, 100% thematic. They nail it. Lord of the Rings had some weird mechanics where, well, if you exhaust this card, you can't use it for a fight, you can't use it for a quest, and locations were just kind of numbers that got in your way. This one, the locations feel like locations. They feel like they do things. Some of these things will have actions on the back of them. I won't tell you what it does, but there's an action that lets you do good things, good things for you. If you go to Southside, if you go to downtown, if you go to the marketplace or East Town, it really feels like you're playing in Arkham. It feels like an RPG. It feels like a mystery. It does not feel like a card game. The only time it feels like a card game is when you go, dang, I hope I get the card I need this round. And then you probably won't. So that's Arkham Horror, the card game in a nutshell. So, final thoughts on this. That's right, I said final thoughts. Therefore, this is the time to talk about final thoughts. Arkham Horror, the card game. Is this something you need to spend your hard-earned money on? In a word, yes. Absolutely. If I could put a little stamp, but not enough people watch these videos, so it doesn't matter. But if I could put a little stamp on this and say, hey, the latest retro absolutely recommends Arkham Horror, the card game, it would be like right here. I mean, this game is just absolutely incredible. It does exactly what it claims it was going to do. It said it's an RPG meets a card game. Is it a card game? Of course. Does it feel like an RPG? Oh, does it ever feel like an RPG? And here's the moment that sealed the deal. Now, I already liked the first mission. I already liked the one that everybody kind of saw and previewed. Yeah, you're in the house, your door disappears. Oh, there's gaunts all over the place, there's ghouls. We knew about that one. But the second mission, when you lay out the map, it was just, oh man, this is good. And then, now this is a mild spoiler. It's not really a spoiler. You can listen if you want to. Take about 20 seconds here to listen, or not listen. Here we go. This. When you win or lose the scenario, the second one, the night mass, it doesn't matter. It's not so much about that. I lost in the Lord of the Rings sense, but you still continue. To me, that was incredible. I absolutely love that you don't just lose and have to restart. No, you're progressing a story, a true, real story. By that I don't mean true story, but I mean a sense of the word story in this game. It doesn't matter if you lose. It doesn't matter if you win. You're getting a story no matter what. And that was so good and so evident in this. Because it says on the one I was playing, and the spoiler section is over, flip to Resolution 2 and see what happens. And when you do, something totally different happens than if you flip to Resolution 1. It is absolutely incredible. And so I absolutely cannot wait, and I keep saying absolutely, to play this. This is the Curse of the Rougarou, or the Loup-Garou, as they would probably say. I live, an hour and a half from Louisiana, so I've got a little bit of pronunciation there. All right, just cut me some slack. This is the one they did at the Arkham Knights. It is a full campaign. It's a full single storyline, which means, look at that. See how thick that is? All of those are encounter cards. There's no character cards or anything in here. What this means is it's got its own deck of encounter cards that you play in this great adventure. I'm excited about trying this. And probably as soon as I finish recording and editing, I'm going to go do this. So, should you get the game? You 100% should get the game. However, I'm going to step off camera. I never do this, to show you my only gripe. This gripe really doesn't have anything to do with Fantasy Flight. It really doesn't have anything to do with Arkham Horror. It doesn't really have anything to do with Cthulhu. It doesn't have anything to do with the Broken Token as a company. It's not their fault. Do you see this? This is the Broken Token Living Card Game Organizer. Check out the size of this. This is Arkham Horror, the card game. I had this in Call of Cthulhu. As you remember earlier, I told you I sold my Call of Cthulhu the day this was announced. This fit perfectly inside of Call of Cthulhu. This does not fit inside of this box. They shrunk the box size down. I get why they did it. I'm totally okay with them doing it, but I kind of was anticipating being able to use this divider, and I cannot. So until the Broken Token or somebody comes up with a great divider, and I know you can get their full thing, I'll just have to suck it up and deal with it one way or the other. However, this game is absolutely incredible. Go order this. Man, I'm sold. I'm in for the long run. I've already got the Dunwich Legacy pre-ordered, and I've already got the subscription through Team Covenant for every Mythos pack. I am sold on this game. Absolutely sold. Mechanics are great. The theme is awesome. The story mixed with mechanics is just absolutely great. They managed to take a card game and make it not feel like a card game. I know that may be insulting to card game players. They knocked it out of the park. This is one of my favorite, probably the top 3 games of the year for me is Arkham Horror, the card game. I hyped it in my mind, and this one lived up to the hype majorly. Go check it out, Arkham Horror, the card game. You will love it. Even if you don't like the Lovecraft universe, it's the idea of these mechanics mixed with this theme, mixed with everything, that just makes it wonderful to play. It's a card game that doesn't feel like a card game. That's high praise coming for some people. So, until next time, this is The Latest Retro. Make sure to follow us on Twitter at The Latest Retro. Also, make sure to check out our segments on Throat Punch Lunch. There's one coming this week. It's an older section. It's an older segment for Tides of Madness that'll be on the Throat Punch Lunch this coming week. Oh, that's the one that just played. Actually, no, this next one coming up will be the Scythe Organizer from the Broken Token. It's a review of that. See what you think about it. Until then, I'll see you next time. I'm Brian.
Hey, you're still watching the video. The video's not over. Check it out. Click subscribe right here to find the funniest, okay, maybe not the funniest, I think they're funny, the best, okay, that's also a stretch, video game, no, videos about games. See how bad this tag is? It's got to be a good channel if the tag is this bad. So click subscribe, pass it along, send it to all your friends. Thanks. I'm Brian with The Latest Retro.